Recording in progress.
Welcome everybody. Who is an EdHero? Who is this superhero?
I've learned with the children I work with and my own children.
The experience and knowledge that we acquired is not well suited to our children.
The war against illiteracy is the main challenge for many countries of the world.
Of children, but that reality has become all the more clear during.
Repetition is the key to learning.
How practice helps make learning perfect.
School is no longer the only one-stop place to get an education.
Become an EdHero to ensure prosperity for your family and yourself.
to whom in my concern, Mr. Rudy Salahuddin, Mr. Osama Abeda, Mr. Conrad Wolfram, Dr. Esther Wojcicki, Mrs. Farhanisa Nasution, and Mr. Indra Dwi Prasetyo as the co-organizer at EdHeroes Forum Asia, Indonesia Chapter. Good morning and welcome to EdHeroes Forum Asia, Indonesia Chapter. I am Yohan Kalatekan here with great feelings and very excited to be your host today in this big event at EdHeroes Forum Asia, Indonesia Chapter, Unveil the Future of Education in Asia. For you who might have questions lingering in your head about what EdHeroes is, let me enlighten you. EdHeroes is a forum for parents, teachers, edupreneurs, and philanthropists committed to improving the quality of education. Through EdHeroes Forum Asia, we wish to convey and share our vision of a brighter future for education in Indonesia. EdHeroes takes on the theme Unveil the Future of Education in Asia. As you know, Asia and Indonesia have a myriad of potential in the information technology industry, potential that when utilized appropriately can bring immeasurable growth. We believe that by moving together, even the slightest contribution can generate a massive impact on the development impact of Indonesia's education field. We divided this whole day forum into the 5 tracks, which include family and education track, curriculum and the future education track, police and education track, minister talk and education reformers track. All tracks consist of 5 subtopics, and to spice up the talks, we have our speakers joining us from all over the world. How exciting! I bet all of us can wait to start. First of all, we are going to witness the first keynote speech from Ministry. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Yohan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all of you. As the well-known Indonesian proverb goes, tak kenal maka tak sayang. Allow me to humbly introduce myself. My name is Rudy Salahuddin. As the Deputy Minister for Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs, representing His Excellency Minister Erlangga, who regrettably has been unable to attend this forum due to other prior commitments. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate EdHeroes Forum Asia for appointing Indonesia as the first and opening chapter. I would also like to express my appreciation to the entire committee who put their hard work to ensure efficient execution of this forum. Last but not least, I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to all the speakers, audience, participants alike who have taken the opportunity to attend the forum this morning. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in this exceedingly dynamic world, the education sector is considered as a strategic area holding the key to ensure smooth sailing to reach our future goals and objectives. In 1999, Nobel laureate in economics Amartya Sen categorizes education as fundamental social opportunities, creating privileges for every individual to live a better life. According to Sen, access to education as one of social opportunities not only plays as a crucial part to attain certain quality of life, but education also serves as an initial capital society to actively participate in broader economic, political, and cultural activities. Regardless of how we come to recognize the crucial part education plays for the accomplishment of one's life, access to education is still deemed as a luxury good to many. Millions of disadvantaged children around the world are deprived of access to education services due to poverty, despite education being the key to escape the poverty trap itself. Therefore, in order to solve these problems, this vicious cycle could be broken if all the stakeholders have made collaboration with many actions. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, on top of that, the COVID-19 pandemic presents new challenges for education sector. It has led the largest disruption of the education sectors. Schools have been closed in most countries, affecting students and teachers worldwide, causing them to miss out on some part of their critical school years. For almost 2 years, students and teachers have been forced to hurriedly adapt to online learning platforms. This change raises pros and cons, with common problems faced in distance learning. Among others, include reduced rate of effectivity of lower learning comprehension. In these disruptive times, the role of parents come into play. During the pandemic, parent support is undoubtedly needed as teachers, study facilitators, as well as motivators for their children to effectively participate in their online learning processes. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, as the world faces uncertainty amidst the pandemic, it will require new breakthroughs to ensure quality education systems of teaching and learning remain inclusive. As we know, the pandemic has accelerated digital transformation. Thus, skilled workforce will be highly on demand. As a result, the skilled workforce has been increased by many governments' intervention in giving them with high-level training, especially in vocational training related with Industry 4.0. Therefore, all the training in Industry 4.0 will transform Indonesian economy into high sustainable growth. At the moment, there are mainly two educational problems we are currently facing. Namely, first is providing access for quality education services, preferably for the vulnerable groups. And the second one is ensuring education delivery is not less effective despite incorporating new learning methods to adapt with the current condition. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, I would like to wish the Indonesian chapter of EdHeroes Asia Forum a great success as a movement initiated by the youth community for educational observers to explore new perspectives and paradigms in the world of education. And I hope the forum can bring positive impact for Indonesia's future education ecosystem. We would like to express our high appreciation for this movement. As the famous saying goes, we cannot walk alone in building a better education ecosystem. We need to lend a hand from all stakeholders involved from time to time. I believe that post-pandemic education recovery can be successful if it is collaborated hand in hand with all stakeholders. With participants from diverse backgrounds, parents, teachers, edupreneurs, and philanthropists, we are all sharing the same vision and same goals. As together, we can collaborate to build a better education ecosystem in Asia. As a final remark, I hope this forum can lead to a prosperous momentum and fruitful discussion toward a better human capital development in Asia generally and in Indonesia particularly. Thank you very much, and back to you, John.
Thank you to Mr. Rudy Salahuddin, Deputy Minister for Digital Economy, Manpower, and Small Medium Entrepreneurs, for a warm speech this morning at GMT+7. The second keynote speech from Advisory Board of EdHeroes, Dr. Osama Abeda, as the Chief Executive Officer, Queen Rani Teacher Academy. The stage is yours.
Good morning. Selamat pagi. Nama saya Osama Abeda dari Akademi Guru Ratu Rani. As a member of the Advisory Board of EdHeroes, I'm honored to participate in this forum, which aims to build a better education ecosystem in Asia and contribute to creating a wider impact and build a future generation of distinguished and potential leaders. But first, I want to thank and congratulate EdHeroes Indonesia for organizing this event and being able to bring together this distinguished audience who believe in education as a driving force for social and economic growth as well as political development. There are some key points here that I would like to highlight in my speech. No matter how we try to avoid talking about the global pandemic of COVID-19 in our speeches, we still find ourselves dragged to talk about its consequences and ramifications in education. And despite all those losses caused by the pandemic, I do believe it has created an opportunity for us as parents, educators, policymakers, and learners to rethink or reimagine what's happening or what should happen in schools. In other words, education systems and schools across the world should jump into the opportunity and think of how education systems and schooling should be formed, but also take actions and think differently. The whole situation has created a new paradigm. Families and parents emerged as strong players in the education system. Student skills are central and they have a different set of expectations from their schools. Teaching and school leadership should be transformed. The curriculum should be different. And of course, current and new technology tools and their utilization in and for teaching and learning should be changed. School closures forced learning to take place in many different contexts. We have seen evidence of increasing community involvement in education and the increasing realization that learning can happen in a much wider variety of settings than just within the school. Parents and the community have a crucial role to play in supporting learners on their quest for knowledge. And a great learning environment promotes curiosity, collaboration, and reflections. A great learning environment promotes curiosity, collaboration, and reflection. The extraordinary circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic meant that students have developed or gained different and new skills. I believe they have become more independent, better organized, competent in digital literacy, and have developed flexible and agile minds. And as you know, these are the skills that, if nurtured and enhanced today, will create better entrepreneurs, edupreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and business entrepreneurs in the future. However, the challenges are not only to prepare students for the workforce. Education should shape better citizens. The question then is how curriculum leaders can articulate adaptive and new structures that can be responsive to these needs. How can the curriculum create a well-rounded, balanced local citizen who belongs to the world? And how can it focus on sustainability issues and development? As I have just mentioned, it's time for teachers and school leaders to take a serious and immediate step towards a transformation. And allow me to give an example on my organization, the Quirania Teacher Academy. We at the Academy have been working hard with confidence to provide high-quality programs to support and empower teachers and school leaders with the skills that help them to be more creative, diligent professionals, and more importantly, well-equipped to nurture and lead future generations. Through our different and various programs, we aim to prepare leaders with a growth mindset. We focus on key skills and values, which include collaboration, risk-taking, resilience, and creativity, and better use of data to inform decisions related to teaching and learning. As we are very keen on aligning our programs with the future challenges and opportunities, we have recently launched a program in innovation and entrepreneurship in education, which aims to enabling and equipping teachers with the skills that they can transfer to their students as early as possible in their schools. And I will conclude with two final notes here. So number one is that the EdHeroes, and here I don't mean the foundation only, but all education heroes are expected to pay more attention to education in an emergency, whether this emergency is a natural disaster, a pandemic, a war, or displacement. These are only examples of emergencies that will continue to challenge the education systems. Thus, we always need to be ready and create responsive education systems. And number two is that the psychosocial and socio-emotional aspects of students and teachers are key and should also continue to receive enough attention from stakeholders. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you a great forum ahead. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Mr. Osama Abeda, Chief Executive Officer, Queen Rani Teacher Academy, for the warm speech. The first keynote speech from EdHeroes Foundation will be delivered by Mr. Conrad Wolfram, from Strategic Director and European CEO, co-founder Wolfram Research. The stage is yours.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me to the EdHeroes Forum in Asia, as well as to be on the EdHeroes board. My name is Conrad Wolfram. I'm the European co-founder and CEO of Wolfram Research, and also its strategic director around the world. Over more than 30 years, we've been trying to push the boundaries of computation to make it an ever more potent force in people's lives for making better decisions. And during that time, the world has become vastly more computational. We see data science, modeling, and all manner of decisions based on computation as we never had before. Underlying this is the power of computers to help us in that role. And this is what's led us now to be entering the AI age, at which we are starting to share quintessentially human intelligence with the machines that we've built. So whilst most of the 30 years I've been spending on building technology to empower humans with computation as optimally as possible, things like Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha, I've also spent the last decade trying to work out what the human end of this should look like. How do humans need to change what they learn based on this new world we face, with computers so connected with our lives? Do we need to change what we learn as well as how we learn it? And I've come to the conclusion that our educational systems not only need a huge reform in terms of the pedagogical approach and using technology to improve how we deliver learning, but also the actual subject matter of what we're delivering. And nothing is more central to this than the core compulsory subject in most countries of mathematics. Mathematics is revered as the linchpin of our future AI age, and most people in most countries are forced to learn it for something like a decade of their lives. It's something that is thought to really underlie what's required both at a societal level and for the top jobs that we have. Unfortunately, this subject, whilst I think there is a subject like that that's really critically important, the subject we have today in schools, I think, has gone really badly off base. It isn't the subject of real-life computation and mathematics. It's a subject of hand calculating, a subject that computers have overtaken. When you look at most maths classes in schools, they consist of how to solve problems by hand, often problems assigned by the teacher. When you look at real-life problems using mathematics, they're far messier, far more complex, but they get calculated on a computer. No curriculum in the world has been reimagined based on the idea that computers should do the calculating, and that we should only teach our students the hand calculating when they critically need it, and otherwise we should leave it to the machines. Instead, we should take their time doing far more complex problems that they get used to, problems that are much closer to their life, problems they can immediately apply outside, but actually are also more conceptual and more intellectual. Well, I say nobody's reconceived this. We have. That's what I've spent a lot of the last 10 years working on with our computer-based maths initiative. We've been building out progressively both the frameworks and actual, increasingly actual problem sets and lessons and so forth that can really be deployed in in different jurisdictions to try and help to address this problem and really change that mainstream subject to something that really empowers our students. And it really is critical that we take action now to do this. I think around the world, we've started to see disenfranchisement caused by a failure of computational thinking at every level, at basic levels in society, understanding about how to manage your own health, when to get vaccinated, how to handle a pandemic, these sorts of things. But also at top levels, how to manage economies, how we should manage our social media, how data science plays into that, the environment. Virtually every aspect of our lives depends on high-powered computational understanding. And at the very minimum, all of our citizens need what I would call computational literacy, a basic literacy in computation that enables them to interpret the sorts of things that they find in the media on which they have to make decisions. And this is very like literacy from 200 years ago. The idea that we should try and get our whole populations to engage in literacy, be able to read and write. This was really not imagined before then, and many people thought it wasn't necessary. But it's proved one of the most empowering aspects of education, enshrined now as a right in the UN and in many ideas about how education should function. I think computational literacy is the next step. We need to go now to a computationally literate society to enable us to move forward in our societies, both at the sort of level of survival, just to know how to function every day, but also how to get a good level of job, what I would call subsistence, and also to get absolute, to drive our economies with the top jobs, as we've seen many of our top organizations do, which are fully dependent on computational understanding. So I would very much like to encourage you to connect with us as you think about curricula in your territories, in your countries, in your organization. And I really hope that at this conference, we can really discuss the subject matter of education, as well as how we improve it with the technology that we have. As you see behind me, I recently wrote a book, The Maths Fix, which is a first charting of how in a sense, complete roadmap for how we make this change from problem to solution to some of the political issues involved in changing such a mainstream subject. But I do think now's the time. I think the pandemic has shaken many things up, and let's use that for the best outcome, along as with many of the negative things the pandemic has done. But we can make positives out of it, and I think this is one of the great reforms that can occur. So I really look forward in working with many of you in the future to try and make that happen. The first territories and countries really to become fully computationally literate will, I think, leapfrog others, in the same way as early societies that had mass literacy moved forward in previous industrial revolutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Conrad Wolfram for a warm speech this morning at GMT+7. The next opening speech from Farhanisa Nasution as Project Chairwoman and Indra Dwi Prasetyo as Chief of Production. The stage is yours.
I have spent my entire life either at the school, on my way to school, talking about what happened in the school, and listening to conversation about what happened at school. Because my mother is an educator. She has dedicated her life for nearly half a century to the world of education. And so, needless to say that I've had a chance to look at education reform from various perspectives. Some of them have been good, some of them have not been so good. And we know why kids dropped out. We know why kids can't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences, fear of inadequacy, and we know why. But one of the things we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value of human connections, relationships. I've read once in one of my mother's books that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. And all learning is understanding relationships, basically. I believe that everyone here has been affected by a teacher or an adult, at least. For years, I've watched my mother teach. Once, I remember I had a hard time in school. I was afraid, I felt inferior, and struggled with school lessons. She told me, "You were chosen to be in the class because the teachers are the best teacher and you are the best student. They put you together so you could show everybody how to do it." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Really." So from now on, she told me to say this to myself. I am somebody, I was somebody when I came, and I will be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful, I am strong, I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do and places to go. Well, if you say it, or if you say something long enough, it starts to be a part of you, right? Another time, she saw my report card and there was a big red 2 on the top of the paper, and that means I only got 2 questions right out of 20. Then she smiled at me and I asked, "Why are you smiling, mother? It's not a good result." To which she replied, "You got 2 rights, my dear. You didn't miss them all. And we review this once you do better." I answered, "Yes, ma'am, I can do better." For years, I've watched my mother took her time to buy combs and brushes and snacks, crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. She knows sometimes kids can be cruel, right? And so she kept those things on her desk. Years later, I watched some of the same kids come through my house and say to her, "You know, Bu Neng," that's my mother's name, "you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become." It brought tears to my eyes because she made a legacy of relationships that could never, ever disappear. Teaching and learning should bring joy. It should be dynamic and relevant to the current situation, and every child should be able to overcome whatever challenges life may throw at them. And that, ladies and gentlemen, requires a good cooperation from us all: families, teachers, educators, education foundations, schools, universities, non-profit organizations, governments, society. Imagine how powerful our world would be if we had children who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a hero. Every child deserves a hero, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connections and insists that they could become the best they can possibly be. Is this tough? You bet. God, you bet. But it is not impossible. Together, we can do this. We were born to make a difference because each one of you is an EdHero. And to achieve the mission, our Chief of Director Indra Dwi Prasetyo will give further explanations about it. Go ahead, Indra.
Education's conditions and challenges in Asia and Indonesia is getting more and more future-oriented, and it requires us to be relevant and stay relevant. Human society is entering a new age marked by a shifting technological change, as well as rising challenges such as environmental degradations, the displacement of human workers by technology and machines, and widening inequality. We need to invent a new education paradigm that can cultivate creative and collaborative individuals. We brought all perspectives from all over the world to help invent the new paradigm. The first is to invent education that fits for the world, that can lead the future. Our speakers today coming from various backgrounds, ranging from education experts, practitioners, educators, stakeholders, financial practitioners, IT industry, experts, and government. So we are here to discuss, to put solutions to the unresolved. Here in EdHero, we have the manifesto. We put this manifesto as an important thing. We encourage educations to focus on family needs. In response to global uncertainties, education should have family interests at heart. The pivotal mission is to support families worldwide on their journey to success and well-being by providing them with access to high-quality education. The primary missions of any family is raising competent individuals, as citizens who can create, love, and make positive choices. The pandemic made it clear that the family is the central platform for a child's education and upbringing. As events unfolded, everyone involved in education had to respond to unpredicted challenges.
Ini belum. Thank you to Ms. Farhani Sanasution as Project Chairwoman and Mr. Indra Dwi Prasetyo as Chief of Production for a warm speech this morning at GMT+7. The next session is the keynote speech from Dr. Esther Wojcicki, co-founder and education chief for WOJ Innovation and Technology, founder and CEO of Global Moonshots in Education. The stage is yours.
Hello, I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much. I have a presentation for you that I would like to present, but I think I'm going to need to have permission to share my screen. And I'm not sure how to do that. Oh, here we go. Thank you for giving me permission. Unless I can share my screen, I need somebody that helps me share the screen. Okay, here we go, I think. Sorry it's taking so long, but I cannot find, screen sharing. Here we go. So I'm going to be talking about the heart of learning in the 21st century. And so thank you very much for bearing with me during that process. So I'm very excited to be here at the Global Education Conference, Thought Leaders in Indonesia. So I'm a longtime teacher, still teaching, 40 years in the classroom. I was the 2002 California Teacher of the Year. And I'm a first generation American. My parents were born in Russia, and my mother was from Siberia. So I know what it's like to be an immigrant's child. I wrote this book called How to Raise Successful People, Simple Lessons for Radical Results. It's a bestseller worldwide, and it is in 24 languages. And I'm not sure it's in your language, but I hope it is. It's definitely in English. I also wrote another book in 2015 called Moonshots in Education, published also in Spanish and in Portuguese. And it was my first book. And I talk about what it is like to have a moonshot in education. So a moonshot in education means changing the way we think of learning in the digital age. And it's really hard to do. And the world needs a moonshot, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, and because it is one we cannot afford to postpone and one we intend to win. This is what John F. Kennedy said in 1961. And this is true. It was holding about going to the moon. That was what they were talking about. And now I'm talking about education. We need to change the way we educate our children. So we need to change the mindset of the teachers and the way that we train them and the way they're training kids. We need to move it from the sage on the stage model where they lecture all the time to a guide on the side. So Mark Benioff, who's the CEO of Salesforce, says this about me and about my book. Every industry is clamoring for more innovators, more creative leaders who can solve problems with intelligence and a strong sense of social responsibility. Esther Wojcicki knows exactly how to instill these values in our children. We need her insights now more than ever. So my teaching pedagogy started with the birth of my daughters. There are my three daughters when we lived in Geneva, Switzerland, Susan, Janet, and Anne. And this is my husband, Stanley, professor of physics. And here are my three daughters today. This was taken at the Breakthrough Prizes in Mountain View, California, just a couple of years ago. And this is my daughter today, Susan. She's the CEO of YouTube. This is my daughter, Janet. She's a professor of pediatrics at the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center, and she focuses on the obesity epidemic. And this is my daughter, Anne, and she's the founder of 23andMe, the largest personal genetics company in the world. She's the CEO. So I spent 40 years teaching, and my goal was to empower students. And I took the same philosophy that I used with my daughters in the classroom. And the program started with 19 students in 1984. That's where I started. I was using a typewriter and X-Acto knives and hot wax. And I was in a classroom that looked just like that. As a matter of fact, as the program grew, they just added more of those classrooms. So today, Palo Alto High School Media Arts Program is the largest in the US, with 700 plus students, 10 publications, and their newspapers, magazines, websites, TV, radio, video production, and 5 media arts teachers, the largest in the US today. So, and I went from that little portable to this gigantic building, which was built for the program by the parents in the city of Palo Alto. So it's a public school. So this is what my classroom looks like. As you can see, I'm there in the back of the classroom. And this is what I think classrooms should look like. This is also my students and what they look like. As notice, nobody's in a row sitting by a desk and listening to a lecture. They're all working in groups. And here's just another picture so you can have an idea what it looks like. This is the furniture. It looks very different than most schools. And that's because I'm teaching project-based learning, collaborative. I'm teaching my students how to think independently. Here's another picture. These are just pictures to help you understand what I'm going to be talking about. And here's the student work. So students produce a newspaper. It looks like this, comes out every 3 weeks, 28 pages long, 3 sections. News section, feature section, and sports section. And this is what the inside of the paper looks like. It's all produced by kids who are between the ages of 15 and 18. And this is a center spread. These are more pictures, bursting the bubble. They know about the bubble in Silicon Valley, painting diversity on the college campuses. They talk about things that are important to them. They come up with their own ideas. This is one of the magazines. It's called C Magazine, and these are all topics, and the artwork, everything is created by the students. And this is, again, more C Magazine, again, all student work. This is Verde Magazine, just to give you an idea of the kinds of work that students are producing. So Sports Magazine, this is a travel magazine and a science magazine. The kids get to do whatever they think is interesting for them. And how do they, as school, pay for it? Self-supporting. The students learn to sell advertising. Why? Because that's a real world skill. And they're not supported. They get to learn what the real world requires. So students learn entrepreneurial skills, and the peer-to-peer pressure keeps the kids motivated. They control the publication. So when they control it, they're really interested in it. They want to be doing exciting things. It's real world learning. And here's a few of the graduates, just so you know who they are and what kind of people graduate there. So Daniel Mason, he's a doctor, but he's also a best-selling author. He wrote this book called The Winter Soldier. Jeremy Lin, who you may or may not have heard, he's a basketball player, a famous basketball player for the LA Lakers. I think he played for the New York Nets as well. Lisa Brennan Jobs, Steve Jobs' daughter, she was also a student in my program. She wrote this book, Small Fry, and I knew Steve Jobs pretty well because, of course, his daughter was in the class, so he spent a lot of time there. Gotti Epstein, he's an economist, reporter. He's in charge of the media. And Ben Hewlett, a lawyer, grandson of the founder of Hewlett-Packard. Brian Wong, vice president of the Alibaba Group. These kids all went from Palo Alto to wherever they were interested in working. So Brian Wong, even though he is Chinese ancestry, he grew up in Palo Alto, but then moved to China and worked with Alibaba and Jack Ma. Noah Snyder, he writes for The Economist, and he is the reporter on Russia. James Franco, you might have heard of him. He's an actor, famous actor, Eat, Pray, Love, 127 Hours, Interview, and Spider-Man. And this is what he says, which I think is very important. All students need to have somebody in the school system who supports them. And she said, she showed me I could take my dreams as seriously as I wanted. Every kid, every student needs that. So our world has changed dramatically. And we have droughts, we have fires, we have global warming, how we shop, we have fake news, we have now drones all over the place. So our world has dramatically changed. We have security breaches all the time, $600 billion annually, security breaches, big problem. And the top 10 biggest data breaches of all time, here they are. Court Square Ventures, 200 million. Just the US, all sorts of things got leaked. Adobe, eBay. I mean, I can spend a lot of time talking just about this, but the idea is to tell you about what are the number one things facing the world in general. And security breaches are one of the main things. Marriott says 500 million Starwood guest-let records were stolen in a massive data breach. There are officially now more mobile devices than people in the world. AI is invading every part of our lives, every single part of our lives. You call on the phone and you don't talk to a person, you talk to a computer, artificial intelligence. So the learning today online is MOOCs, massive open online courses, and there are lots of them. And we all are subject to social media. Social media is everywhere. So this is a little cartoon to remind you that before kids were running outside, Mom, I'm off to play soccer. Today, we're playing soccer online. This is also something that you need to think about. 58% of children aged 2 to 5 know how to play a computer game. And more small children can open a web browser than can swim. Twice as many kids aged 2 to 5 can play with a smartphone application as tie their shoelaces. More 2 to 3-year-olds can play a computer game than ride a bike. Our world has changed dramatically. In 1995, you see the user was a small guy with a big computer. Today, probably even bigger. The guy is bigger. Of course, he's sitting there doing no exercise. So he's bigger and the computer's smaller. And I would say in 2021, after the pandemic, it's probably even worse, bigger than that. But today we're teaching for the last century. Even though we have a changed world, we are teaching for the century that passed. We're teaching for the factory model. Our archaic education system does not prepare students for a rapidly changing world, often stifles important drivers of problem solving and innovation. 1 in 4 kids is affected by mental illness. 8.6 million adults have suicidal thoughts. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death. People are depressed. Children with anxiety disorders are least likely to receive treatment. That's a problem. So we're using this curriculum, still using it, divided in the subject areas decided by these men called the Committee of 10 in 1893. We still use the same thing. And the focus was memorization, and the memorization is still our focus. We have kids memorize all the time, and this is what we get, people who follow instructions. Einstein said, never memorize something you can look up. I think he was one of the smartest people on the planet. Tests control what we learn. We're all controlled by the tests, and this is the number one test, PISA, the Personal International Student Assessment Test, Program for International Student Assessment. All countries take it. 90% of the school is lecture-based. It puts kids to sleep, but teachers keep lecturing anyway. University lectures are ineffective for learning, still keep doing them. This is what people do in lectures. And whether they're in person or online, that's what we're doing. Our needs have changed, and we need to prepare students for a 21st century world. Is memorization learning? Do students really understand the material, or do they just memorize it and forget? This Harvard physics professor, Eric Mazur, says, test taking promotes memorization, not learning, not thinking. 2 weeks after a test, students remember only 32%. A year later, students remember less than 10%. So what is learning? Ben Franklin said, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn." That was like back in the 1700s. Winston Churchill, "I'm always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught." It's true for everyone. So the number one skill employers want today is creativity. How do we prepare creative students? The preparation of talent has to start early in elementary school. The way we learn has changed dramatically. So we learn from projects. Kids learn the most from projects that they like. They learn from working together collaboratively. We're all born curious, and memorizing in school scares the creativity out of us because we think there's just one right answer and you have to answer it on a multiple choice test. Students learn by doing, not by watching, not by listening, not by reading about it. They learn when they're doing. They try learning to be a surgeon by just reading about it, just as an example. So this is a learning tool. This is also a learning tool. These tools can promote creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. Those are the most important skills for the 21st century. This is what we're all trying to achieve. Collaboration, critical thinking. Just think about this. Does this happen in your school? Communication skills and creativity. How to create passion for learning. Give students some control of their learning. Recommended amount of time for creativity thinking, since it's impossible to change the whole system. How about 20% of the time? Give kids 20% of the time when they can do something creative. Learning happens when it's tied to real world projects. Focus on peer-to-peer. Kids learn more from each other than you can imagine. So the solution, put the student in charge 20% of the time. So here's one solution that you can take notes about. You can sign up for track.app. Kids 8 to 14. It's for kids 8 to 14, created by teenagers 15 to 22. It's a solution for grades 4 to 8. Project-based learning meets new media creation. Clubs, classes for kids by kids, created by teenagers. How about that? Bring project-based learning to your classroom easily. Most of the time, teachers don't do project-based learning because it's too hard for them to set it up. So all they have to do here, teachers, sign up. You go to teach.track.app. It's free. Doesn't cost anything. It's an opportunity to have kids be in control of their learning. It includes hundreds of subjects. So sign up with this code. You go to teach.track.app and the code is EdHeroes. Parents go to track.app and the code is EdHeroes. So this is a solution for kids age 8 to 14. 8 to 14, grades 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is for younger kids, and I'm going to talk about solutions for older kids in a minute. So there's no professional development required. It's just like using YouTube. There's no training for YouTube, and there's no training for Tract, but it is monitored for the classroom. There's science projects, tech projects, coding, engineering, and it's all based on my philosophy of trick. This is in my book, it's actually in both of my books, and it stands for trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. And this is what I say, you need to treat your children like this as a parent, and as a teacher. Give kids more trust and respect, give them independence of thought, collaborate with them, and treat them with kindness. And I'm going to get into more detail about this. So we need to do this with math. Track does this with math, with art, music. We are revolutionizing education also for the high school and for the college student. And just take a look at Wojcicki at UC Berkeley. I'll talk about this in just a minute. So this is a combination of my philosophy together with UC Berkeley engineering. And so Sudarja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology, is called SCET, formed a partnership with me to create a new path for EdTech entrepreneurship for students around the world. Just happened last year, just prior to the pandemic. Here's the people involved. That's me wearing the pink pants. So WAJ, innovation and technology, upskill, reskill for Indonesia. What are we planning to do? This is not lecture-based. So this is project-based learning. It's a proven alternative learning methodology to the traditional teacher-led lecture and memorization educational method. This is an effective way to teach. Costs less, much faster. So here's the engineering software. So 1 month pre-season, there's a lot of coding, variables, the coding environment, terminal imperative. This is all for engineering. There's an 8-month, 2-season program, upskill programs, artificial intelligence, web development, data science, blockchain, cybersecurity, machine learning, cloud computing, administrative imperative programming, object-oriented programming, functional programming, and databases. 2-year, 1-year, and 2-year programs, full stack development, software engineering, solutions architect. So this might not mean anything to you, but it means a lot to people in engineering. And these are the jobs that are happening now that are going to be in demand in the next, between now and 2030, when most of the jobs, we don't even know what their titles are. So peer-to-peer learning is an educational practice in which you interact with your fellow students to reach your educational goals. It is the most effective way to learn. And so here it is again, just to make it easier, and hopefully you can get a copy of this presentation. It's a lot of tech engineering where there is huge demand with high salaries. So the WAJ assessment is a multidimensional, comprehensive tool to help students and educators gain insights through self-awareness of their behaviors, motivators, and skills. So it's the most accurate human insights on the market. So we also make sure that you have the right social emotional skills. You don't just learn the technical skills, you learn the social emotional behaviors, motivators. It's so important for you to also understand yourself and understand how you can work effectively in a group. So WAJ 21st Century Soft Skills, available as an essential university program. All the soft skill modules are integrated with my trick model and my WAJ way pedagogy. Here's more information about it. So WAJ, there's an assessment. The learning is active, just like I said the previous part of this presentation. You can't learn to be a surgeon by just reading a book about it. You can't learn to be an engineer by reading a book about it. You have to do it. It's project-based, peer-reviewed, peer-to-peer collaborative learning, mastery. You master it. We don't grade you until you've mastered it. And we want to make sure that student motivation is the key to increase student engagement. So this program works for all students. You don't have to be super smart. You just have to be motivated. Motivation is the key. And motivation is the key to learning anything, by the way, no matter what it is. And the idea is to trust your students to work, respect them as individuals, give them independence, work in groups and teams, and learn empathy and kindness. This is the key. So this is for high schools and colleges. You can get a degree at the college level in 18 months, sometimes even less, at the most 2 years. It's half the time it takes you to go to a traditional college. And we're fueling entrepreneurship and innovation. We start the training, produce something. Some trainees still found projects from their own ideas as a result of hackathons. We provide trained tech talent to the startups in the ecosystem. And we use talent and startup community to attract further trainees. So we use TRIC in all aspects of the program, all aspects. Students are trusted, respected, given independence, collaborated with, and treated with kindness. So these are some students from the past. These are from, many of them went to different colleges around the world. The software engineer, these are my students. And it's kind of funny to see them all grown up, to be honest. It's pretty exciting. Our students will earn a certificate from Berkeley, University of California, upon completion of their program. And the goal for Indonesia would be 1,000 WAJ Berkeley certified students, 2022, 2023. Let's see what we can do to help them. What we'd like to do is upskill existing talent to Silicon Valley standards, fill the talent gaps, eliminate skills gaps, upskill similar skilled workers. We're trying to help people be the most effective and productive they can be. They help themselves and also help the world. So I'd like to invite you to join the movement. It's WAJ Innovation and Technology, info@wajit.com. So you can write that down. It's www.wojit.com. And I think it will make a huge difference to everyone who tries the program. It'll be very exciting. So thank you very much for your attention. And I appreciate being invited to this conference.
Thank you, Dr. Esther W.O.J. Wojcicki, for the warm speech at this event. And let me introduce Dr. Esther Wojcicki. She is as co-founder and education chief for WOJ Innovation and technology founder and CEO Global Moonshots in Education. Known as the godmother for the Silicon Valley, Dr. Esther has been closely involved with Google and Google Edu since its inception, where she was one of the leaders setting up the Google Teacher Academy and remains a guiding force. And she is the mother of Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube, Anne Wojcicki, CEO of 23andMe, and Janet Wojcicki, and also as professor of pediatrics at UCSF Medical School. Dr. Esther is a journalist and award-winning educator and best-selling author, a pioneer in the integration of technology into the classroom, the first to introduce Apple Macs into the classroom in 19 1984. And a world-renowned advocate for students and teachers, she was California Teacher of the Year in 2002, named by California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, a recipient of the Gold Key by Columbia Scholastic. Thank you for the all-one keynote speech and opening speech to kick the start of EdHeroes Forum Asia to education movement. And right after this, we also have many speakers with different backgrounds and experts in many fields who will discuss a thought-provoking topics. To remind you, the track consists of family education track, curriculum and the future track, police and education track, ministerial talk, and education reformer tracks. And each track will have 5 sessions with different topics. You can check at edheroes.asia/live to watch inspiring sessions with the greatest speaker. And don't forget to fill attendance form in edheroes.asia/attendance. This event supported by Mustika Ratu and Yayasan Putri Indonesia. Thank you for all attendants for participating in our opening, and all tracks will start at 12 by GMT +7 time. Let's enjoy session as the heroes of the education movement in the world. Goodbye. See you later.